Welcome to Buckets Live, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Michael Fiddle, the market reader, and by Brian Fonseca, because there is no one else I would rather spend time with during the fourth quarter blowout of the last game of the year as the Celtics secure banner 18 than Brian Fonseca. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna break down this fourth quarter. We'll sweat any sort of bets that we have left over from this game. We'll see if the Boston Celtics can hang on with a 19-point lead here in the fourth quarter with a chance to secure banner 18, or if the Mavericks will quite honestly pull off one of the greatest comebacks in finals history to go ahead and push this to a game 6. We will talk about all that. Plus, if the Celtics do secure the title, we'll talk about what that means, as well as we'll take a look at the 2025 NBA title odds, because it's never too early to start building that title portfolio. Let's start right here with the most pressing question, which is, with the Boston Celtics now up 21 with 9 to go, and the Dallas Mavericks look absolutely gassed. Luka Doncic has been bad. He's been bad in this game. He's been real bad from start to finish. Michael Fiddle, what's the current market at for Finals MVP?
So Jason Tatum has moved to minus 190 and Jaylen Brown is plus 135. This is the biggest difference between those two since probably game 1 in Jason Tatum's favor. Before the game started, Jaylen Brown was a minus 235 to Jason Tatum's plus 265. So a big game 5 for JT has pushed him over JB according to the market. What I've also noticed, Matt, which is about damn time, is that they've nixed all the other players that didn't matter anymore. Like still at halftime, there was Derek Lively MVP odds and there was Kyrie MVP odds. We are down to Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday, and Luka with no other names listed, and it appears to be Tatum's to lose according to the market at this point.
Brian, do you think that's accurate? Is that a good price? Is that an accurate price?
Yeah, I think because recency bias has to be a key factor here. Like, to me, body of work should still sort of like give Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown rather the nod, but Jason Tatum at minus 190 now is not that surprising because he's playing great in this game and he's had some great assist games, but I think Jaylen Brown's been their clear best player up until this closeout performance.
I do want to stress this, that one of the things that goes wrong with, as betting has become more prevalent, is that there's been this idea of you should look to the market as an indicator of reality when it comes to subjective things like awards. And we talk about this all the time on Buckets. That's not how this works. For instance, Jason Tatum was minus 1,400 at halftime of game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Pacers, and Jaylen Brown won that. Now, that's not to say that this isn't indicative of where this is headed, because here's what I heard this week when I talked to people that I'll call them likely voters. I heard that Jaylen Brown was probably ahead, but they hadn't really looked at it. They'll look at it once the team actually clinches, and that it was not so like there was only, of the 6 people I talked to, only 2 of them were like, no, I mean, it's definitely Brown. That was it. So the other 4 where I think we're definitely in a space where, with Tatum now closing in on, although, look, he's got 20 points on 17 shots. Like, it's not a great efficient night. Then again, Jaylen's got 17 points on 20 shots. So it's either way, not a great one. I am biased in this, in that I have Jaylen Brown tickets, but if we remove those tickets, because I can live without them, I have enough Tatum tickets to be okay. For me, I'm just like, Jaylen was the best player in the first 3 games of the series. He's been their most consistent player, and he's been the one to primarily Luka Doncic in the first action. The Celtics switch a lot, but Jaylen Brown has guarded Luka Doncic the most in this series. He has defended the most shots of Luka Doncic in this series. So when you factor in that definitely, I think, needs to significantly apply here. Phil, what else? Did you have anything else? Did you have the over on this game?
I did have the over. I played it back at halftime with the under 217. So I'm actually in a beautiful position. I also tacked on Celtics minus 6.5 with late steam. There was a really interesting like pregame market move if it's worth even exploring at this point, just from a betting perspective. I don't even know if we want to spend time on it because it's the end of the season. You probably can't carry over these tricks, but there was like something very telling in the market before the game too.
What was telling in the market?
So there was late moves towards the over, which has been happening in every game of this series, but there was also late moves towards the Celtics, even like hours after the Porzingis news. So when I see these late moves, Matt and Brian, I'm like, late moves matter the most because generally that's when the biggest bets come in and limits are the highest. So if something is going to move the line, then it's going to raise my eyebrows right before the tip. However, when we're in this late kind of season situation, you have to wonder, is this hedging? Is this hedge-based betting before we get to the final game of the NBA season? And I was like, no, it can't be that because it's going Celtics side, right? You would think the hedge comes Mavericks with the points to open up a middle. You're not going to hedge with a Celtics against the spread and lay points and open up a Polish middle. So I knew to rule out the fact that it was a hedge. And then I said, could this be handle-based? Could it just be the books not wanting to take a side and wanting to even out their portfolio? But you could check some, public betting splits and understand that that wasn't the case either, because you could even compare books and see that the money was not the issue here. So then I'm like, is this meaningful? Is this limit-based and meaningful action coming in late? And that was a yes for me once I ruled out the other two possibilities. So I grabbed Celtics minus 6.5, and I was on the over, bet off of that with the under 217 live, and find myself in an amazing situation right now.
Well done. Brian Fonseca, what are you sweating here in the fourth quarter?
Need Al Horford to get another steal or a block.
Okay.
That's where we're at. PJ is not going to come through points wise, so that's already dead.
Yeah, that was not a good night for PJ here. 0 of 5 from 3, by the way, for PJ Washington. Josh Green was the random Maverick to step up. I have Dante Exum over 2.5 points. That hit. And Dante Exum over 4.5 points in rebounds. He has 4 points, no rebounds, and no assists. I just need him to get some garbage time here.
Some garbage time.
Just
Matt,
to
can
be
I ask
able
you
to
another
get
question about
here.
Finals MVP?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we're only 2 or 3 years into the Eastern Conference, or just conference finals MVPs being awards, the Larry Bird Trophy and the Magic Johnson Trophy on the East and West, and Jaylen Brown winning the Larry Bird Trophy in the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, is that a factor in now Jason Tatum moving to a minus 270 to win this award tonight? Do you think the voters are going to remember that they just gave the last one to Jaylen Brown? Like, we don't have enough data to know how conference finals may affect finals in an opinion type of situation. It's a subjective market.
I don't think so. I think this is more to do with the fact that he leads the Celtics in rebounds, or I'm sorry, in points and assists, and he's got 7 boards to go along with it. So that to me is just like where this kind of comes through. Is like, and he's closing the door right now on the Mavericks as well. Brian, when you look back on this, what's going to surprise you most about these finals?
How Kyrie Irving was 0 for 3 against the Celtic fans. Like, just absolutely stunk it up. And like, because this is somebody who has the wiring of, I don't give a fuck where I'm at. I'm going to go out and do what I do. And he all but admitted the Celtics kind of got to him, the crowd, but also that defense was amazing. So like, we should probably start there. Full credit to Drew Holiday, to Derek White, to Jaylen Brown, who had to pick him up on switches, Jason Tatum occasionally as well, but as a collective, but mainly the backcourt. But ultimately, it's that, like, and this is, to me, from an entertainment standpoint, the biggest bummer of the finals is that Kyrie Irving, we didn't get a single FU moment of Kyrie Irving in Boston or whatever. It's just the crowd owning him, which is not a visual that probably sits well with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But just him not playing well in this arena, give it all the drama, all the stakes. And this was really one of the main storylines going into the NBA finals. And it was just 3 straight flops, just 3 straight flops. And the last one basically is going to give the Celtics the title that they got Kyrie Irving to help them get initially. So in a roundabout way, like, he just takes all the L's here. which if you're a Celtic fan, you're absolutely enjoying.
Yeah, that's got to be really rewarding for them after how everything went down with Boston. Kyrie in this game, looking at 12 points on 4 of 15 shooting. Did have 9 dimes. Luka Doncic is still putting up threes. He just had another one, so he gets the 26 points on 11 of 23 shooting, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a minus 18 in the box score for the player. Often questioned about his impact. This is a bad Luka game. That was bad. So Fiddle, what's going to be your kind of like lesson that you learned from these playoffs and from the series going forward from a betting perspective?
From these playoffs, my biggest takeaway was first year coaching is actually more of a detriment than I originally assumed. In past years, I think it was Ty Lue won a championship in his first year. Steve Kerr won a championship in his first year. Nick Nurse in Toronto won a championship in his first year. Now the league has gotten so deep with coaches across the board that you're seeing the experience of Mazzulla and Kidd has been phenomenal throughout the playoffs. You look at a coach like Dagnalt, who was a regular season maestro, who might have struggled a bit in the playoffs. Maybe Finch had a few moments against Kidd where he struggled to have the right adjustments against the Mavericks in the Western Conference semis. So I'm actually changing my tune that a first-year coach can just waltz to the NBA Finals if they prove it in the regular season, and that even playoff coaches take their lumps.
Benseca, my biggest thing I'm trying to figure out for next year is we are now on back-to-back seasons where a seed further than 5th has made the NBA Finals. Both of them have gotten their teeth kicked in short order by the much better team. But it is kind of like, I think, interesting to look at. I don't know how to do that going forward because I've been really on the kick of like, look, top 3 seeds don't make it. Now I think what I'll probably continue to do is do stuff like the exactas that I did mid-season where it was, I had a Celtics Mavericks ticket that hit. I had Celtics Wolves. I had Celtics Thunder because I was going against the idea of the Nuggets as the 1 seed and kind of going against that. Now I had like Nuggets and Sixers and Nuggets and Knicks, and those all failed. But I do think that there was probably something to learn from. There's an ability for these teams, I think, to make runs now, especially with the trade deadline. For whatever reason, we're seeing back-to-back years where last year 2 eight seeds made the conference finals, 1 made the finals, and then this year a 5th seed made the conference finals. I'm sorry, a 6th seed made the conference finals in the Pacers, and a 5th seed made the finals. How do we kind of like make sense of that from a futures perspective going next year?
The league is deeper, I think, is the most important thing. And the talent distribution is a little bit more even, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, than it was in the Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Cleveland versus Golden State era, where the league felt more top heavy. And even before that, now the common thread, like, there are reasons that Miami last year and Dallas this year were able to make the runs. One of them is probably something that you focus in on a lot, Matt, is matchups. And they both had matchups that they were able to exploit and take advantage of along the way. Miami got Milwaukee, who they play well against. Giannis missed time, but like, Milwaukee, I tell you, plays better without Giannis against them than with. And they were able to get past Milwaukee. The Knicks were a good matchup at the time. They faced Boston. Those are always competitive. And then Dallas this year, they obviously had, the Clippers without Kawhi, but still a pretty good Clippers team. Oklahoma City, who was good but young, and then Minnesota, who they were able to take advantage of because Minnesota was clearly not ready yet. And then also in the case of Dallas, top end talent with Luka, one of the best 2, 3 players in the league. That helps. Kyrie Irving is a great number 2. Didn't show it in this series. Tough to do against the Celtics, but you have that and a core around them that's 2-way guys, versatile, switchable on defense, guys who can do things defensively. Like, I think that matters too. Like, PJ Washington is a big wing who could play some on the inside, who could defend. Is not probably ideally a number 3 on a contending team, but because of Luka and Kyrie, you're able to have that. And then with Miami, it's like you have arguably the best coach. You have Jimmy Butler, who in the playoffs, there's a history of great performances there. You have Bam, who in terms of defense is the elite of the elite. And then you have guys around last year that make a lot of sense. So I think it's really because of a few things, but mainly because the talent distribution is a little more even. And these particular teams just made a little bit more sense and were probably a little bit better than being a 5 or an 8 in a traditional season, because the league is just deeper now. And you're going to have guys who are all stars on 10 seeds and 9 seeds and in the play-in and things of that nature just regularly now.
Are veteran teams better for the playoffs and younger teams and more youthful teams better for the regular season? Does this become a thing where we start to attack seeding markets in futures for younger teams that might try and prioritize a regular season? Do we take a step back that some of these veteran teams mid-season might say, look who's made the finals in the past few years. Look who's gotten to the Western Conference Finals. It was another 3 versus 5 this season. Gunning for the 1 or the 2 isn't the most important thing. Let's save our legs a little bit. Is it a thing where we look for, a Pelicans to make a jump and take their long odds on their under seeding, or a top 4 seed or something like that? Are we looking at younger, more youthful teams to make a jump?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because historically we have kind of seen a bent towards the veteran teams, and it does feel very much, it's weird. There's a dichotomy here where guys are playing older and further into their careers than ever, right? Like LeBron's 40 and Jimmy's going to be 36. And you have all these guys that are on the other side of 33, which used to be kind of a marker. And yet we're also seeing those teams not be as successful, like the Suns being, kind of a notable marquee kind of disaster. You do kind of need to be closer to 30. I don't necessarily know if you want to be young. You kind of want to be in that 25 to 30 range, right? It's more of like the prime. You want to be really in that prime kind of space. Because I've seen the Nuggets with their guys mostly in that 25 to 30 range. And then the Celtics with most of their guys in the 25 to 30 range. As Jaylen Brown misses another layup because he hates me. I think in large part, there's probably something to be said for, I'm going to write this later. This championship is also about the fact of super teams are dead. Like, they're just dead. This Celtics team is loaded. Like, there are legitimately, I think, you could make an argument. Like, I could put together a good argument for 4 guys being all NBA level on this team, but they don't have the superstar, like mega star power. It's not Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and I guess Bradley Beal. It's not Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden. It's not Harden and Kawhi and PG. It's the entire team also plays together. And we've seen this in back-to-back seasons where the Nuggets had the best player in the series in Nikola Jokic. And this year, the Mavs had the best player in Luka Doncic. But the Nuggets played like a team, and the Celtics play like a team, and the Mavericks play like a bunch of guys watching Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving dribble a lot. And I do think that there is a limit to how far that can go. Now you say, like, Matt, they made the finals. Absolutely, 100%, which I think goes back to the matchup problem that we kind of talked about with the Mavericks. They had matchup advantages all over, as Luka just continues to pour in these points. I guess good for him for making sure that
his over under was 32.5.
Did he hit the over?
He's getting close.
See, he's at 28. Yeah, he needs 5 more points. We'll see if he gets there if they check him out. 28, 12, and 5 for Luka in this one. He's got 28 points on 25 shots. Good grief. What were you saying, Fiddle?
I was wondering, is the death of super teams more cap related or depth related for you? Because is this impacts of the new CBA already, or do you think it's more depth related to what Brian was talking about earlier?
I think it's more about just like teams have gotten smart about how to play. Like, we just don't see. I think it's a lot harder to pull off things like in 2011 when they just threw LeBron, Wade, and Bosh together and just had them get together, and they failed in the finals, but they did make it there. I think it's harder to do that now. I think it's one because you don't have those level of guys. And I think that it's just kind of rare to see the combination. Now, that doesn't mean that, I'm trying to think of like what a combo would look like. That's part of it, is like we don't even necessarily have those kind of megastars. It would have to be like Anthony Edwards teaming up with I guess Booker maybe, but like that level of guide in order to be able to kind of compete, because there is kind of this layer of great players that we haven't seen really take hold of their careers yet. Zion, I think, being one. I think you probably
Ja
argue
Morant.
Ja Morant, Trae Young, I think would be another one where Trae was like really highly regarded and hasn't really, hasn't really gotten there. Brian, I will have to ask you, do you come, I'll just ask this. Do you come away feeling differently about the Celtics? Did the Celtics beat the charges? I think is the best way I want to ask this question.
I don't know. Because it's almost like it's weird. I don't really know how to answer that yet because I probably need to sit with this finals more, rewatch it. Me and Jim Turvey were talking about this, and he made the point like I kind of want to see how they are next year. What if this is a flash in the pan season and they can't duplicate it, or what if this is part of a run where a continuous Celtics run where this is like the back end of what they did in the previous 6 or 7 years, and they get to, I don't know, over the next 3 4 years, you're talking about 2 titles in 2 appearances, maybe a couple conference finals or whatever. Like it kind of depends. Because with some of the great teams we talk about, we generally don't talk about one individual season. We talk about a run. And this incarnation's different because you add in Drew Holiday, you add in Kristaps Porzingis, and now it's also like, how is their competition going to adjust? I think they're gonna like we'll talk about futures. I think they're gonna be the favorites because they're gonna have this core together again for next year. But the Bucks will probably try to do stuff. The Sixers will probably try to do stuff. The Heat, the Knicks, like the competition we always talk about in the Eastern Conference, they're probably going to get ambitious, and then we'll see if anybody else gets any other ideas. Indiana made it to the conference finals. Are they going to like be ambitious enough to try something? So I think to me, they were a great team this year, but am I going to put them in the same category as like the Steph, Kevin Durant Warriors or the Jordan, Jordan Pippen Bulls? Not necessarily, and I don't think that's disrespectful, but
I
I
don't think
still
anybody was putting them there though. I
no,
really
but some of the advanced numbers do. You know
Yeah,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
Like that's what it is, and I think
I think
that's
it was more.
I
I
think
think,
that's what people take exception to is like they're not
yeah,
necessarily that, and I think that's
yeah, and I think it's more a matter of like SRS. I think is the easiest one because that to me is like a really good one. Of look, that's point differential versus strength of schedule. Who'd you play? How tough was it? And how much did you win by? Kyrie's checking out. Um,
Do you think they would beat last year's Denver Nuggets in a series?
I would take Denver.
I probably would too. And I,
Uh,
I think that Denver team was a really good team.
the
I
the
don't think
way that
they're
the way
necessarily
that
all-time great though.
well, I'll say this. I see. Here's kind of the problem: is like I think I'd like Denver, man, but I don't know. That 2017 Warriors team wouldn't do as well. You know why? That 2017 Warriors team hated it when you switched. They
Hmm.
hated it when you switched versus them. KD just winds up taking mid-range jumpers all game, and you're like, you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant would just be like, I have a worse defender on me. I'm one of the best offensive players ever. I'm going to shoot these mid-range jumpers. Um, I think that maybe a better way, like this is kind of where I came to on it, is this Celtics team may not be an all-time great team, but they had an all-time great season. Start to finish, beat
That's
everybody, point differential, SRS, the whole thing. Wow. This is via on Twitter. Luka didn't hit his point total over one time in the NBA finals.
That's why unders went 5-0 as well.
that's so true.
That's wild. Um, So anyway, that's kind of like where I come out is that Fiddle, I think that the Celtics team is not now. Here's what I think is going to be crazy is I will just go ahead and tell you, I am with both of these teams. My prior going in, we'll have to see what the numbers pop up as when we get through free agency and we get to the win totals. But my prior inclination, my lean going in is I want the over on both of these teams, and I very rarely do that. Like I'm usually like, okay, you had a great season, but I'm expecting you to come back down. Boston's success is so replicable. Boston's success is so consistent. Boston's success was so good even when Porzingis missed wide swaths of the season. From a win total perspective, And with where I've got them power rated, I genuinely do think that even if this number comes out 56.5, I'm probably going to lean towards the over. And that's usually that's an auto slam on the under. It's hard to win 55 games in the NBA. A lot has to go right, but they're so deep and so replicable. I don't necessarily have an inclination of why I would expect them to be worse next season. I'm kind of on the lookout for a 2016 Warriors look, not from the perspective of greatest team of all time, so explosive, so dynamic. I mean, just from the perspective of a team that got there and we're like, oh, hey, they got there. Now they'll probably come back down a little bit. And instead we're like, no, they're way better. They're actually even better than last year, but they won 64 games. So there's not much room there for a ceiling to improve. But Fiddle, I will say that my inclination here is for to take the Boston Celtics team total over going in next season, as well as the Mavs.
My one thing to caution to the wind with that would be, does Al Horford retire? Does Jaylen Brown end up going to Team USA? Or is Kawhi going to play? Is he the next possible replacement? You are going to have Drew and Tatum going to Team USA. So do they lose Horford and send two guys to extremely long summers that they don't prioritize the regular season? But listen to this callback, Matt. Listen to this callback. I believe before I was ever with Action Network, I listened to you and Brandon Anderson on an episode of Buckets say that historically taking the over on the highest win total on the board is still profitable as a betting trend when it comes to win totals. You're inclined to go under because it's a monster number, but the history shows that the highest priced team still goes over. So I would agree, but I'd like to wait and see, like, how does that number move? Does Horford retire? I want them to, let's see if they extend Derek White. There's a few things in the wind with this team to make sure. So it's probably not a hit right away, but it probably is a hit before the start of next season.
Wrap it up here, 40 seconds here. We'll do Buckets live post game. We will talk about the 2025 NBA championship and where we think the value lies for that. We'll also react to the NBA Finals MVP, which is going to absolutely piss me off to zero end. I had such a good, this is like the one time I didn't hedge either. I was like, no, I'm not hedging. I've got early in on Jaylen Brown at plus 650. This is the right side. It would take Jason Tatum having, and this is what pisses me off, is like Tatum's not even going to finish with the kind of game that I thought that he would need to take it. But it's just like the vibe is very much like, no, it's Jason Tatum's. God damn it.
Tatum is full tears right now.
Awards, yeah, he is full tears. And look, it's
good for him.
These guys have battled through a lot, and like I will say this, Brian, that like they've failed over and over and over and over again, and to see them finally get there, I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great if you're, a Celtic fan, first of all, and you've wanted to see them win, I don't know, their second title since 1986, because it's harder to win now than when the Celtics got the first, I don't know, 12, 13 of their championships. And this is the best team that they've had since 2008. I think that 2018 was great. I thought that they were really, really, really well put together. There were a couple different times where I felt like they were going to get it back. I'll say this too, also, because I haven't talked about him enough, and seeing Al Horford get a ring is actually going to be pretty cool. But Joe Mazzulla, his stock has probably risen a lot for me just over the course of this playoffs and this season. He seems like a nut job, which I kind of like in a coach. Didn't like him much last year. Wasn't crazy about him. Seemed a little different, but this year, absolutely. I think he's going to be one of these guys we talk about as an elite NBA head coach before too long. I don't think people are going to jump there yet because it's just his second year and they're probably going to give more credit to the team. But no, I think Joe Mazzulla, like he's really got a handle on what he's doing in Boston. And I think that's sort of going to be the underrated part in all this, because I wonder how much credit he's going to get for how good they've been during the regular season and the playoffs. I think he deserves a fair amount of credit too, not just the team components of it. And also, obviously, Brad Stevens, who people joke should probably get Finals MVP, actually, over anybody else. But Brad Stevens, I mean, he won Executive of the Year, and for good reason. Like, those moves that they made, like, I had questions about, hey, like, the Marcus Smart piece is a significant one. Kristaps Porzingis, the health, which came to fruition, and ultimately they were able to overcome it. Credit to them. And then Drew Holiday, that was the steal of the offseason. Somebody who we thought was done. But when you make him option number 5 instead of number 3, and he can focus more on defense, then it's a different ball game. So I do think that their front office and their coaching needs to get a fair amount of credit for this as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like they were the best team all the way through, and shout out to Milwaukee Bucks for giving. Well, let's I want to give out some other championship credit here.
Oh boy.
First, credit's got to go to the Miami Heat media. Just phenomenal job of overplaying the stress, and really Damian Lillard's agent for overplaying their hand as well, for really putting them in a bind here, and Miami media playing into all that and listening to anybody who would tell them the game was only going to go there, resulting in the Boston Celtics getting Drew Holiday at the end of all those things. So really, Brian, this is a win for
shout out to Memphis for giving them 2 firsts for Marcus Smart, which they could flip to Porzingis.
Shout out to also to Jimmy Butler, Bam and Spo for sending them home last year and forcing them to make moves in the offseason.
Yeah, and then with the title that Miami won, it's got a sting as well. It's now one. No, it's not. Also, I think that I feel really bad for Marcus Smart. I feel really truly awful for Marcus Smart.
They keep having Grant Williams show up and talking Grant Williams because he played for both teams. Like, let's see Marcus Smart at the game. Come on, give us what Smart's thinking.
He's got to be so depressed, man. That sucks because like Marcus gives a lot to his teams, so it's a pretty big bummer. Tatum celebrating. Looks like Tatum's winning Finals MVP. He's getting interviewed right now. We'll see what the vote comes in when that's official. I think it is really funny that the Portland Trailblazers basically built the whole thing. That is really wild that the Portland Trailblazers of all teams
we need to consider how the Time Lord and the Brogdon piece played out too. Like if they stayed on the Celtics and they both get hurt and just aren't good, I don't think the Celtics make this run either.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk 2025 odds because I want to get into that real quick as well. Here as we continue on buckets, we'll wrap up with some look at the 2025 NBA title. As a reminder for all of you, by the way, we will still have buckets. Brandon and I are going to do a recap episode that talks about what we got right, what we got wrong, what we learned from the season. We'll have that later for you on the podcast feed. We're also switching to draft. I've already started betting NBA draft stuff. So that's like the next thing on my list is going to the NBA draft as Reed Shepherd, by the way, -170 to be top 5. Pretty good pick there. Couple other ones that we'll have going on there. The board at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. The Boston Celtics for the 2025 NBA title to repeat are +310. We have not seen a repeat champion since 2018. They are 110 to win the East next season. The Denver Nuggets are +750. The Dallas Mavericks are +950. The Thunder are +950 along with the Mavericks. The Bucks are 10-1. The Wolves are 10-1. The Knicks are 16-1. The Sixers are 16-1. The Clippers are 20-1. The Warriors are 25-1, along with the Lakers and the Suns. A little team called the Miami Heat are 35-1, Brian, and the Grizzlies are 40-1. Fiddle, from that market, what kind of stands out to you as far as what that market tells us about next season?
I think the first thing when considering futures this far out is you probably just need like a little extra boost in the odds. You want to attack long shots. You want to attack buyers in the free agency or trade market, teams that could make a big upgrade this offseason, because you're making a long-term investment right now, and you're choosing to do that with your money over putting it in other places. So, and this carries risk. So you also want to attack, Matt. I think there's 2 parts to this. One, I would look more towards long shots and buyers. And 2, I wouldn't even limit yourself to only teams that you think can win the NBA title, because we do not have markets yet for win totals, conferences, seedings to make the playoffs, and so forth. So last year at this time, I bet Pacers 500-1 and Houston Rockets 500-1. And that was solely because this was the only market that existed, and I knew those teams would be buyers. So going into, later in the offseason, a few weeks from now, when some of these markets start opening up, they're going to be priced in that they're going to upgrade. You're going to see some early moves, early rumors start to come out that impact and make the win total not reflective of the plus 500 to 1 or something like that. So I do think this is a rare moment where I'm like, never place a bet when you're already expecting to hedge. But if you're picking off huge long shots in the East that you think can make the NBA playoffs, so say like the Charlotte Hornets, does LaMelo stay healthy? Do they bring back Bridges? Does Brandon Miller get a little bit better? Do they even make the play in and sneak in the back of the playoffs? You pick off a 250, 300 to 1 on them, you're even looking profitable. So I think this is actually kind of, you could consider every team in some sense.
I like that. Just bet every team. Just bet
every team.
Bet every team. Brian, when you look at this board, is there anything that stands out to you as far as value on the 2025 NBA title, just for a ticket to stash away for a full year in case you want to tie up your money for a full calendar year?
Yeah, I mean, I like looking at organizations that I think are going to be ambitious. One of the reasons I like Dallas for this year is because it felt like a year that they could be buyers potentially, and they were that, and then they ended up getting to the finals, and I had a future on them to win the Western Conference, and that ended up cashing. Because largely to me, their trade deadline acquisitions, like those helped, and obviously the emergence of Derek Lively, and then obviously the stars. So to me, I agree with Fiddle. I would only look at long shots here. Like, I would probably stop at maybe that 1,500 or so range. Like the Knicks were the team that I was thinking of. Is like, are they worth a long shot play? But I feel like that's one that you could potentially wait on, because I had gone into probably March or so, like, hey, they're primed to make a move this summer. And with everybody injured, I feel like they could kick the can down the road and do that in February. So I don't feel the need to really buy in on that one now. Whereas, like, who knows what's going to happen with some of the other teams. Memphis is probably an interesting buy low candidate. A lot of people loved Memphis going into last year. Obviously, that didn't work out because of the injuries and just everything else. But they're going to be a sneaky buy low candidate, because everything that we thought, or a lot of people thought, not necessarily we, about Memphis coming into this year could potentially apply next year. And that organization still wants to win now. They still have great pieces. They still have a team that they feel like can make a deep playoff run and match up well with some of these other teams in their conference. And then you have like long shots, like, I don't know, could the Orlando Magic be the mystery team in the Eastern Conference? Like, could they actually make a move in free agency or in the trade deadline? And they already have like a great defense. Could they keep that together, add a couple parts, not Klay Thompson? God, not Klay Thompson. But could they add some stuff and potentially make a run in the Eastern Conference? Because they're like, I don't know, plus 6,000 right now. So like, what are you really losing there? But that's really on the long sort of end of it for me.
So what's interesting here is the history has said that like nobody that's been more than, I think, 16 to 1 has won. And like, it's like, there has to be like a cap on it. But if we're openly saying that we're in this unprecedented era of parity, and we are seeing 8 seeds and 5 seeds and 6 seeds make the conference finals and finals, then this definitely opens the door, because the team that I would look at here amongst a few others is the Memphis Grizzlies at 40 to 1. And if you get the Grizzlies into a conference finals appearance, right, you're good. You can hedge that appropriately through the last 2 rounds with a number of options, and hedge it actually sooner than that, usually in the semifinals. I'm going to talk about this with Brandon in our lessons, and we'll talk about this a lot more over the summer. The other team that really stands out to me is, unfortunately, it's a team I can't bet, because I told myself after they were eliminated I can't do it anymore. It's
Lakers.
The Philadelphia 76ers.
I wanted to guess it.
1. So
I can't do it.
It's just the injury for Embiid, right? Look, the Sixers have a clean cap. They've got Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and the ability to reshape the roster however they want. They're going after Jimmy Butler. Paul George is on the list. Miles Bridges is on their list. Like, they have the ability to completely reshape their roster this summer. I don't want to tie up my money on Joel Embiid being healthy. Like, right. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
And that sucks, because I really believed in this Sixers team, and they just, like, Joel just wasn't healthy. And so they got bad seeding and then got knocked out by a Knicks team that was on a good roll. Same with the Clippers. Like, that's a very good bet here, is the Sixers and Clippers are the best value on this board. except for the fact that they're the best value if they're able to get to the playoffs healthy, which I don't know. Like, I don't know how to put a number at that. I don't know what the number, I don't know what the, if you were to handicap, what's the price for Joel Embiid being not on an injury report within 3 weeks of the second round, right? What number do I have to put that at? Plus 7-1 at this point because of how often the injuries happen to befall him. So I think it's tough. I do know that I'll tell you some of the numbers that, and Fiddle's got some choices that he likes here. There's a couple I'll tell you that I don't like. One, the Warriors should not be 25-1. They're looking to get under the luxury tax. They're looking to avoid the repeater. They're looking, the Klay Thompson is not definitely gone, but very likely gone. So they've got to be removed from this conversation. Steph's still Steph, but Steph's also getting up there as well. He started to show some real fade. I think the Heat cannot be at this number. Like, the Heat can't be above Memphis because of the fact that Jimmy Butler's situation is still up in the air because he wants an extension and we don't know what they're going to do with that over the summer. They may keep him. Yeah.
Could I ask you though, if they do move him, but they're able to use the salary slot for a different type of star, probably along Bam's timeline. We don't know who that is right now, but like, there's a way where, like, if they move on from him, and I'm not saying that they will. I'm not sure that they will
For sure.
But there's a world where you can reshape the team quickly enough, and it's like not a significant drop off, given that Jimmy doesn't give you 60, 65 games in a regular season anyway.
Yeah. Now, I agree, but I also don't think that that's a this year move. I don't think that happens next month, right? In part because even if they create a salary slot, there's no one for them to sign. And I don't know who that star would be unless Donovan Mitchell does a complete 180. Like, I'm expecting tomorrow for Donovan Mitchell for the Cavaliers to announce that they have not announced. I'm expecting for Adrian Wojnarowski, or no, it'll be Shams. I'm expecting for Shams Charania to report that Donovan Mitchell has agreed to a 4-year deal with a 4th-year player option with Donovan Mitchell. That's the expectation around the league, right? So if it's not Mitchell, PG's not on Bam's timeline.
No.
So
Donovan would be the perfect. Yeah. I think if you're sprinkling on them, it's really just a bet on, like, they're gonna compete Spoelstra, Bam, like, organizational, but like, I don't even know what their team's gonna look like to the point where I could talk myself into it.
Thunder plus 950 is probably a little bit long. That should probably be a little bit shorter, just given that they're going to be a 1 seed again. Like, not a 1 seed. They're going to be a top 3 seed probably again. If they're healthy, that's the problem, is like the Thunder were super healthy. Fiddle, what are the 2 teams that you like the best?
So in the Eastern Conference, I actually kind of do like the 76ers. That was the one I wrote up for Action, an article saying first.
I'm sorry, I have to break this up. Jaylen Brown Finals MVP.
No, serious?
Yeah, you're seeing it right now.
Let's go.
That sucks for me.
I'm sorry, Fiddle. I'm very sorry, Fiddle. I'm very sorry.
Okay, so the Sixers are fine, but I actually like the Lakers. There's a 40-1 in the market right now, and if they're a team that's going to be looking for a 3rd star, I still trust LeBron to be dominant in the playoffs. So I like the Lakers 40-1. My mood is kicked from that Jaylen Brown news, and I actually think the Charlotte Hornets, there's an 100,000-1 in the market. That's worth picking off for a tiny bit and pre-planning the hedge.
You have to understand, this is not about this is not about the money. This is about Brandon Anderson. That's what this is about for me. That's why this matters.
I just exited out the stream too, and now I have to pull it back up and watch what's happening.
Absolutely incredible. I saw, like, everyone was jumping on top of a player, and he had on the championship hat, so I couldn't see it. And I was like, who is it? Who is it? And then I was like, it's Jaylen! It's Jaylen! Very excited. Absolutely incredible. That's phenomenal.
So if you're a Celtic critic, this is the one thing that you're gonna be like, hey, Jason Tatum didn't win Finals MVP or Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I can't wait to see how this is gonna be broken down. Given that, I mean, people were giving Steph shit for years for having titles and not a Finals MVP until he finally got one in 2022.
Brown was the best
back-to-back playoff series with Tatum as the odds-on favorite. The screen locks. You can't bet anything else. In the Eastern Conference, it was minus 2,000. Here, the last I saw was minus 390, and it never popped up again. And still, boom! In both cases, Jaylen Brown wins.
The lesson there, honestly, I'm going to be very serious with you. The lesson in both of those cases is that you do not have, how can I put this? The voters that are selected for Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP, these are people that have been around the game for decades. This is not young beat writers. This is not an international person who puts Domantas Sabonis as defensive player of the year or an all defense vote, right? These are like extremely, these are really well-known professionals, and they're not gonna get, I think that they're better about not getting suckered into the recency bias stuff. I think that's like a lesson here, is maybe like they actually do kind of consider how good the actual series was. I also think also in part of this is like how short the series was, right? If this goes one more game, I think Tatum wins it. It just so happened to win in 5. All right, so sorry, I was distracted by celebrating my victory over Brandon. The two teams that you wanted for the titles next year, Phil, were who?
I think the Lakers at 40-1 is very interesting because I think they're going to be buyer. I think they now have 3 first-round picks to trade. I don't love the first-year coach coming in. I would lean Borrego if I had that ticket as who I'd want them to hire. Charlotte Hornets, 100,000 to 1. That's worth picking off with a pre-planned hedge if you think that they're going to take a step up. And then I kind of do like this Philadelphia 76ers at 16 to 1. They're going to remain flexible whether or not they get anyone right now. They might hold on to the cap space, bring back Maxey, and remain flexible for the disgruntled star that comes available mid-season. So I just think that's a safe bet. You'd imagine they highly prioritize Embiid being healthy, if that helps at all, to TBD. But 16 to 1 feels too long for them. I would expect them to open the season, if they acquire someone, at 8.5 to 1 and potentially get there when they do acquire someone before the deadline.
I just can't with the injuries. I can't do it, Fiddle. Don't make me do it. I don't wanna. I think the other one I would kind of look at. See, here's the thing. I would love Bucks. This is such a great buy low spot. The Bucks are in such a great buy low spot. I don't want Doc Rivers. But
that's the one you don't want. That's interesting.
But we just saw Jason Kidd outcoach Ty Lue, Mark Dagnall, and Chris Finch. And we saw Joe Mazzulla, who many of us thought was not good. And I actually thought Joe did a very good job in these playoffs. Now, he coached from a position, like he coached from advantage, right? Where not only with the injuries, but also there are things he could have done that would have made those series worse than they were. And things like the fact that they only lost the one to Miami and Cleveland. And only like this game, and I think tonight is a good proof of that. Like they bounced back and got a good victory. Also, probably another thing that I should do next year is Brandon and I both love the over on the Celtics. It was one of our best bets, was we wanted the Celtics over at 55.5 on the win total. So, and like he and I both were like, we think this is the 60 to 64 win team. We took alts on the over. And yet I was like, but I don't want them on the title. I overthought that shit, and I gotta not do that. Like if I think that the team's gonna win 60 games, they're worth me putting money on the NBA title at the beginning of the season. Like that's the type of team that you want to get there. Okay, that's gotta do it for Buckets. Thanks for joining us. Great season, guys. Buckets Live has been absolutely phenomenal. We've grown so much on this channel, and I've been just thrilled with it. We will do live shows for free agency. We'll do some live shows for maybe on the draft as well. We'll do all that and more over the summer, and then we'll be back with you next season. Buckets will continue over the summer, so make sure to keep that in your feeds. Download, subscribe, like. Check out Action Network on YouTube at youtube.com/The Action Network. My thanks to Michael Fiddle for joining me all throughout the season. He's been such a great contribution with the way that he's read the market. Brian Fonseca, despite all of the shit I have given him, is absolutely one of my favorite and smartest people at Action Network. He's thoughtful. He thinks things through very clearly, and he's got a really sharp eye for basketball as well as the fighting sports. Is that the word? Fighting sports? The fighty fights. He's got a really great eye for the fighty fights, and you should check all that in the Action Network app. My sincerest thanks to David Payne, our producer, for his work all year long, getting this up. He's worked long hours into the night, making sure the Buckets goes up every single day. My thanks to Matt Mitchell for all of his support. My thanks to Tito for getting Buckets Live going. And tonight, my thanks to Hutton for hanging out with us on short notice and helping me out with this Buckets Live after I screwed up the timing. So shout out to Hutton as well. Hope you guys have yourselves a great off season. We'll talk to you guys again soon on Buckets. Till then, let's get buckets.